The crimson sand of Xerion Prime stretched endlessly beneath the twin suns, each grain stained with the blood of countless battles. Captain Marcus Steele pressed his back against the twisted wreckage of his fighter craft, the metal still hot from atmospheric entry. His tactical display flickered weakly, showing dozens of red dots converging on his position. The Zephyrian Empire had found him. Marcus checked his plasma rifle's charge, 30% remaining. His medical kit contained basic supplies, and his water recycler had taken damage during the crash. By all calculations, he had perhaps 6 hours before dehydration would claim him, assuming the Zephyrians didn't find him first. The irony wasn't lost on him. 3 months ago, he'd been farming wheat on New Montana, content with his peaceful existence after retiring from the Terran Defense Corps. Then, the Zephyrians had attacked the outer colonies, their crystalline ships raining destruction on innocent worlds. The distress calls had reached Earth, pleading for help against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Marcus had answered that call, along with thousands of other veterans. They'd formed the Free Volunteer Fleet, a ragtag collection of modified civilian vessels and decommissioned military craft. Most people call them crazy. The Zephyrian Empire controlled half the galaxy, their technology decades ahead of human capabilities. But humans had something the Zephyrians didn't understand. They refused to surrender when protecting others. A sound made Marcus freeze. Footsteps, light and irregular, coming from beyond a nearby rock formation. He raised his rifle, finger on the trigger, waiting. The steps grew closer, accompanied by labored breathing and what sounded like whimpering. A figure stumbled into view, and Marcus nearly pulled the trigger before his training kicked in. The being was humanoid, but distinctly alien, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the harsh sunlight. Delicate features suggested femininity, though Marcus couldn't be certain with alien physiology. What was certain was that she was badly injured. Blood, or what Marcus assumed was blood, seeped from multiple wounds across her torso. Her left arm hung uselessly at her side, and she moved with the desperate determination of someone running on pure adrenaline. Most striking were her eyes, large, silver orbs that held intelligence and, currently, fear. She spotted Marcus and froze, her good hand instinctively reaching for what appeared to be a weapon at her belt. But the movement proved too much, and she collapsed to her knees, gasping. Marcus kept his rifle trained on her, but didn't fire. She was clearly no immediate threat, and something about her desperate condition reminded him why he'd left retirement. The strong protecting the weak, regardless of species. "Easy there," Marcus said, lowering his weapon slightly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The alien's head tilted, and she spoke in a musical language he didn't recognize. Her voice was strained with pain, but there was an underlying authority that suggested she was accustomed to being obeyed. Marcus activated his universal translator, hoping the device hadn't been damaged in the crash. After a moment of processing, it crackled to life. "Please," the alien said, her words now understandable, though carrying the flat intonation of machine translation. "They hunt me. My people are dead." Marcus studied her more carefully. Her clothing, though torn and bloodied, appeared to be made of fine materials. Intricate patterns were woven into the fabric, and what looked like ceremonial jewelry adorned her neck and wrists. This wasn't a common soldier or civilian. "Who's hunting you?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Zephyrians," she confirmed, hatred flashing in her silver eyes. "They destroyed our world, killed my family. I escaped, but barely." She gestured weakly at her wounds. "I cannot run much further." Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He slung his rifle across his back and approached the alien slowly, hands visible. "My name is Marcus. I'm human from Earth. The Zephyrians are my enemies too." The alien looked surprised. "Human? I have heard stories of warriors from a small blue world who fight against impossible odds." She studied his face intently. "You are far from home, Marcus of Earth. So are you, it seems." Marcus knelt beside her, assessing her injuries with a medic sigh. His time in the Defense Corps had taught him battlefield medicine, and while alien physiology was different, trauma was universal. "What's your name?" The alien hesitated, then seemed to reach a decision. "I am Princess Lyralii of the Etherian Confederation, the last of my family line." Her voice carried profound sadness. "My world is ash, my people scattered or dead. I carry only the hope that some survived and made it to the refugee camps." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert wind. The Etherian Confederation had been one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, known for their advanced medical knowledge and peaceful nature. They had never harmed anyone, existing as neutral traders and healers throughout the galaxy. "The Etherians," Marcus said quietly. "I heard the reports, but Command said they weren't confirmed." "They are confirmed," Lyralii said bitterly. "The Zephyrians wanted our medical technology, our healing crystals. When we refused to weaponize our knowledge, they simply took our worlds by force." A distant sound made both of them look up. The unmistakable whine of hover engines echoed across the desert, growing steadily louder. The Zephyrians had found their trail. Marcus helped Lyralii to her feet, noting how she favored her right side. "Can you walk?" "I will try." But even as she said it, her legs buckled. The blood loss was too severe. Marcus looked at the approaching dust cloud on the horizon, then at the dying princess beside him. Every tactical instinct told him to leave her and find better cover. One human might evade capture. Two beings, one severely injured, had no chance. Instead, he surprised himself by lifting Lyralii in his arms. She was lighter than he'd expected, her alien physiology apparently favoring efficiency over bulk. "Hold on, princess. We're getting out of here." "You should leave me," she said weakly. "I'm dying anyway." "Save yourself." "Not happening." Marcus began moving toward what looked like a cave system in the nearby cliffs. Humans have a saying, "Nobody gets left behind." The Zephyrian patrol craft crested the dunes as Marcus reached the cave entrance. He could see them clearly now, sleek vehicles manned by the Empire's infamous shock troops. Tall insectoid beings with natural armor plating and weapons integrated into their bodies. They lived for conquest and showed no mercy to the defeated. Marcus ducked into the cave just as energy beams began searing the rock around the entrance. He carried Lyralii deeper into the darkness, following a narrow tunnel that seemed to extend into the cliff face. Behind them, he could hear the Zephyrians landing and beginning their search. The tunnel opened into a larger cavern, lit dimly by phosphorescent crystals embedded in the walls. Marcus gently set Lyralii down against a smooth rock wall and began examining her wounds more carefully by the crystal light. What he found made his heart sink. The injuries were severe, multiple puncture wounds that had damaged internal organs, based on the location and severity of bleeding. Her alien physiology was different enough that his standard medical supplies might not be compatible, but similar enough that he could tell she was dying. "How long do you have?" he asked quietly. Lyralii's silver eyes met his. "Hours, perhaps. The wounds have damaged my primary circulation system. Your term would be arterial bleeding, but more complex." She managed a weak smile. "I am a healer, Marcus of Earth. I know death when it approaches. There has to be something I can do." "Nothing," she said simply. "Unless—" She hesitated, studying his face intently. "Unless what?" "My people, we have a saying, life given freely multiplies. It refers to an old practice, forbidden now, but not forgotten." Lyralii's voice grew stronger as she spoke. In the ancient times, when an Etherian was dying from blood loss, another could share their life force directly. Not just blood, but the energy that sustains life itself. Marcus leaned forward. A transfusion? More than that. A joining of life essences. But it has not been attempted between species in over 1,000 years. And even among my own people, the donor, she trailed off. What happens to the donor? Usually death. The sharing divides one life between two bodies. Only if both are very strong can both survive. Lyralii reached out and touched Marcus's arm with her good hand. You are strong, Marcus of Earth. I can sense it, but I cannot ask you to take such a risk for someone you have just met. Outside the cave, Marcus could hear the Zephyrians getting closer. Their harsh voices echoed through the tunnels, along with the mechanical sounds of their equipment. It was only a matter of time before they found this cavern. Marcus looked at the dying princess, the last heir of an ancient civilization, a healer who had spent her life helping others. Then he thought about the wheat farm on New Montana, the simple life he'd left behind. A life that would mean nothing if beings like Lyralii died while he stood by and watched. Tell me how to do it. Lyralii's eyes widened. Marcus, you don't understand. Even if we both survive the joining, our life forces will be permanently connected. You would be bound to me, and I to you, in ways your people have no words for. And if one of us dies, the other dies as well. It is not just a medical procedure, it is a soul bond. Princess, Marcus said firmly, I didn't come to this desert to farm wheat. I came to fight an enemy that destroys innocent worlds. If saving you means I can keep fighting them, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. The sound of approaching voices grew louder. They had perhaps minutes before discovery. Lyralii studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. But know this, human warrior, if we both survive this day, your life will never be simple again. She guided his hand to a crystal pendant around her neck. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. This is a life crystal, grown over centuries in the sacred groves of my homeworld. It will facilitate the joining. But first you must cut your wrist and mine so our blood can mingle. Marcus drew his combat knife, its monomolecular edge sharp enough to slice through metal. Without hesitation, he made a careful incision across his left wrist. Blood welled up immediately, running down his arm in dark rivulets. Now me, Lyralii said. Marcus made a similar cut on her wrist, noting that her blood was indeed different, slightly luminescent with a blue tint. She pressed their wounded wrists together, and immediately Marcus felt a strange, tingling sensation. The life crystal began to glow brighter, and Lyralii began speaking in her musical language. The words seemed to resonate through the crystal itself, creating harmonic frequencies that Marcus felt in his bones. Place your other hand on my heart, she instructed, and I will do the same to you. When their hands made contact, the world exploded into sensation. Marcus felt as though he was falling through infinite space, every nerve ending on fire. He could sense Lyralii's consciousness touching his own, her memories and emotions flooding through their connection. He saw her world as it had been. Crystal cities reaching toward purple skies, gardens where healing plants grew in impossible abundance, a people dedicated to preserving life throughout the galaxy. He felt her pain as the Zephyrian fleets arrived, her horror as her family died protecting the sacred groves, her desperate escape through burning cities. But she was experiencing his memories too. His childhood on Earth, the wars he'd fought, the simple peace of his farm, and, most importantly, his unwavering determination to protect the innocent no matter the cost. The joining process felt like it lasted hours, but Marcus knew it could only have been minutes. Gradually, the intensity faded, leaving behind a strange new awareness. He could sense Lyralii's presence in his mind, not intrusively, but like a warm light in a previously dark room. More importantly, he could see that her wounds were healing. The bleeding had stopped, and color was returning to her pale blue skin. She was sitting up straighter, her silver eyes bright with renewed vitality. It worked, she said wonderingly, then looked at Marcus with concern. How do you feel? Marcus took inventory of his body. He felt different, stronger in some ways, but also drained. His own minor injuries from the crash had healed completely, but he was aware of a profound fatigue unlike anything he'd experienced before. Like I just ran a marathon and had the best sleep of my life at the same time, he said honestly. And I can sense you. Not your thoughts, but your presence. Is that normal? It is the soul bond, Lyralii explained. We are connected now, Marcus. Not just our lives, but our destinies. She stood smoothly, testing her mobility. The joining was successful, but it has changed us both in ways we may not fully understand for some time. The sound of Zephyrian voices echoing through the cavern system interrupted their conversation. They were running out of time. Marcus shouldered his rifle again and helped Lyralii gather her strength. Can you fight? I am a healer, not a warrior, she said, then smiled grimly. But I carry my people's knowledge, and some of that knowledge was never meant for healing alone. She reached into a pouch at her belt and withdrew what looked like a simple crystal rod. At her touch, it began to emit a soft blue glow. What is that? A medical resonator designed to accelerate cellular repair, Lyralii said. But in the ancient times, my people discovered it could also disrupt cellular cohesion. We swore never to use them as weapons. Her expression hardened. But the Zephyrians destroyed our world and killed my family. Some oaths no longer bind me. Marcus felt a chill at the cold determination in her voice. The gentle healer princess was gone, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. Through their bond, he could sense the profound changes the joining had wrought in both of them. The first Zephyrian soldier rounded the corner into their cavern, its insectoid head swiveling as compound eyes located them. It raised its weapon, mandibles clicking in what Marcus assumed was surprise. Marcus put 3 plasma rounds center mass before the creature could fire. The Zephyrian's natural armor absorbed most of the impact, but the hit staggered it long enough for Lyralii to point her crystal rod in its direction. The device hummed, and suddenly the Zephyrian was screaming, a horrible chittering sound that echoed through the cavern. Its armor began to crack and flake away as the creature's cellular structure destabilized. Within seconds, it collapsed into a pile of organic debris. Impressive, Marcus said, trying to keep the unease from his voice. How many more of those can you do? As many as necessary, Lyralii replied coldly. They showed my people no mercy. They will receive none from me. More Zephyrians were approaching, their heavy footsteps and mechanical equipment sounds growing louder. Marcus estimated at least a squad, possibly more. Even with Lyralii's terrifying weapon, they would be overwhelmed in a direct confrontation. We need to move, he said. This cavern system has to have another exit. They began moving deeper into the caves, following passages that seemed to extend far into the cliff face. The phosphorescent crystals provided enough light to navigate, and Marcus noticed that they grew brighter as he and Lyralii passed near them. Some effect of their joining, perhaps, or the alien technology she carried. Behind them, the Zephyrians had found their first soldier's remains and were advancing more cautiously. Marcus could hear them communicating in their harsh, clicking language, coordinating a systematic search. The passage they followed began to slope upward, and Marcus realized they might be climbing toward the top of the cliff face. If they could reach the surface, they might be able to signal for extraction. His emergency beacon was still functional, though it would take time for any friendly forces to reach them. Marcus, Lyralii said quietly as they climbed, I must tell you something about the joining we performed. What is it? The connection between us, it will grow stronger over time. We will begin to share not just life force, but abilities, knowledge, even memories. She paused. Your human stubbornness and determination are already affecting me. I can feel myself becoming harder, more willing to fight. Marcus considered this. And what am I getting from you? Knowledge, healing abilities, and something your people call intuition, though it goes deeper than that. Lyralii touched the wall beside them, and the crystals flared brighter. I can sense life around us, the Zephyrians below, but also something else, something larger. They reached a branch in the passage, and Lyralii stopped, closing her eyes in concentration. "This way," she said, indicating the left fork. "There is life in that direction. Intelligent life, but not Zephyrian." Marcus trusted her instincts, or rather, their combined instincts. The new abilities flowing between them through their bond were becoming clearer. He could sense the Zephyrians behind them more precisely now, track their movements through the stone itself. The left passage emerged onto a ledge high above the desert floor. The twin suns were setting, painting the landscape in shades of orange and purple. More importantly, Marcus could see what Lyralii had sensed, a camp hidden in a canyon below, with several small ships concealed under camouflage netting. Refugees, Lyralii breathed. Survivors from the Zephyrian attacks. Marcus studied the camp through his rifle scope. He could see dozens of beings from various species, many injured, all clearly in hiding. Among them, he recognized the distinctive blue skin of other Etherians. "Your people," he said. "They made it after all." Tears glittered in Lyralii's silver eyes. "Not all, but some. Enough to rebuild, perhaps, given time and safety." A commotion from the passage behind them indicated the Zephyrians had found their trail again. Time was running out. Marcus activated his emergency beacon, sending out a coded signal that would reach any human forces in the system. Then, he turned to Lyralii. "Can you contact them? Your people in the camp." She withdrew a small crystal device from her robes. When she touched it, it began to pulse with the same rhythm as her life crystal. "This is a resonance communicator. All Etherians carry them." She spoke into the device in her own language, then listened to a response. "They will send help," she said, "but it will take time to reach us up here." The first Zephyrian appeared at the passage entrance, weapon ready. Marcus put it down with a precise headshot, but more were coming. Their temporary safety was about to end. "Princess," Marcus said as he took aim at the passage entrance, "whatever happens next, I want you to know giving my blood to save you was the right choice. I can feel it through our bond." Lyralii raised her crystal rod, preparing to defend their position. "And I want you to know, Marcus of Earth, that joining my life to yours has shown me something I had never experienced. What it means to have someone willing to die for you without question." The battle for their lives was about to begin, but Marcus realized he faced it with hope rather than desperation. Whatever the Zephyrians brought against them, they would face it together. The bond between them had created something new, something neither fully human nor fully Etherian, something that might just be strong enough to survive what was coming. The second wave of Zephyrians entered the cavern behind them, and Marcus began firing. But through his connection to Lyralii, he could sense something else approaching from below. The rescue party from the refugee camp, moving fast and with military precision. This was far from over. In fact, Marcus realized with growing certainty, it was just the beginning. The rescue came from an unexpected direction. As Marcus held the passage against the advancing Zephyrians, he heard the distinctive whine of energy weapons from behind their position. The refugee camp hadn't just sent a rescue party. They had sent warriors. 3 figures rappelled down the cliff face with military precision, their movements coordinated despite being from different species. The first was an Etherian male, taller and more muscular than Lyralii, carrying what appeared to be a modified healing crystal that hummed with destructive energy. The second was a being Marcus didn't recognize, reptilian with natural armor plating and for arms that wielded weapons with deadly accuracy. The third made Marcus's heart leap with recognition. "Steel," the figure called out in accented English. "You magnificent bastard. What are you doing in this hellhole?" Marcus glanced back to see Lieutenant Commander Sarachan of the Terra Navy, her powered armor scarred from countless battles, a plasma cannon that looked like it could take down a starship mounted on her shoulder. "Chun, how did you never mind? Just help us hold this position." Chen's plasma cannon spoke, and the passage entrance where the Zephyrians were massing disappeared in a cloud of superheated rock vapor. "Extraction point is 30 meters down. Can your friend travel?" Marcus looked at Lyralii, who was staring at the Etherian male with an expression of shock and joy. "Kale," she whispered. The male Etherian warrior vaulted over their defensive position and knelt beside the princess. "My lady, we thought you were dead when we received your resonance signal." He trailed off, his gaze moving between Lyralii and Marcus. "You have been joined to a human." "This is Marcus Steele," Lyralii said, pride evident in her voice. "He saved my life by sharing his life force with mine. He is soul bonded to me now." Kale studied Marcus with new interest. A human participated in the ancient joining? That should have been impossible. A lot of impossible things happening lately, Marcus said, firing at Zephyrian movement in the smoke-filled passage. "Can we discuss alien biology after we get off this cliff?" The reptilian warrior, Chun introduced him as Colonel Seth of the Draconian Republic, was already setting up a rappelling system. "Zephyrians will have more forces incoming. We need to move now." As they prepared to descend, Marcus noticed something troubling. His emergency beacon was still transmitting, but the response he was getting wasn't from human forces. The signal signature was Zephyrian. "Chun, we have a problem. The cavalry isn't coming. Zephyrians intercepted my beacon, and they're using it to track us." Chun swore in 3 languages. "How long before they reach the camp?" Kale answered, his enhanced senses apparently picking up distant vibrations. 20 minutes, perhaps less. They have a full assault group incoming. At least 200 troops with air support. Marcus felt a cold certainty settle in his mind, reinforced by the bond with Lyralii. The refugee camp below held nearly 300 beings, mostly civilians, many injured. They had perhaps a dozen small ships, none armed for serious combat. Against a full Zephyrian assault group, they would be slaughtered. "What kind of defenses does the camp have?" Marcus asked as they rappelled down the cliff face. "Minimal," Seth replied, his 4 arms managing the descent with reptilian grace. "Portable shields, a few energy weapons. Nothing that could stop a determined assault." "Then we don't make a stand," Marcus said, his tactical mind working through possibilities. "We evacuate. All of them, right now." Chun shook her head. "Not enough ships. Maybe half the refugees could escape, and that's assuming the Zephyrians don't have interdictors in orbit to prevent jump calculations." Marcus felt Lyralii's presence in his mind, her thoughts aligning with his own. Through their bond, he could sense her knowledge of the refugees below. Not just Etherians, but survivors from a dozen worlds the Zephyrians had conquered. Engineers, doctors, teachers, children. The accumulated knowledge and culture of civilizations that might never exist again if these people died. "There has to be another option," he said. They reached the canyon floor and immediately began moving toward the refugee camp. Marcus could see it now in more detail. A collection of emergency shelters and hastily erected medical facilities, powered by portable fusion generators. The organized chaos of people trying to rebuild their lives from nothing. An elderly Etherian approached them as they entered the camp perimeter. Her skin held the deep blue tint that Marcus was learning indicated advanced age among her people, and her silver eyes carried the weight of centuries. "Princess," she said, bowing deeply to Lyralii. "Matron Isara greets the last daughter of the royal house. We feared you had joined your family in the eternal light." "Not yet, honored matron," Lyralii replied with equal formality. "Though death stalks us all this day, the Zephyrians have found us." Matron Isara's expression hardened. "Then we will face death with dignity, as our people always have." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We're going to face it with superior firepower and tactical brilliance. But I need information first." He turned to Chun. "What human forces are in this system?" "None officially. The Free Volunteer Fleet was scattered 3 days ago after a major engagement near the Kepler cluster. Most ships are either destroyed or running for friendly space." Chun paused. "But there are rumors of a ghost ship operating in this sector. Something that's been hitting Zephyrian supply lines and disappearing before they can respond." Marcus felt a spark of hope. "Ghost ship. The Zephyrians call it the Phantom of the Void. supposedly commanded by a madman who refuses to accept that humanity can't win this war. Chen smiled grimly. Sound like anyone you know? Before Marcus could respond, the camp's perimeter sensors began screaming warnings. On the horizon, dust clouds marked the approach of Zephyrian ground forces, while the sky began to show the telltale shimmer of cloaked atmosphere craft. Time's up, Seth observed, checking his weapons. Whatever we're going to do, we do it now. Marcus looked around the camp, at the frightened faces, the improvised weapons, the handful of small ships that represented their only hope of escape. Through his bond with Lyralii, he could feel her desperation, her need to save these people who represented the last hope of her civilization. An idea began forming in his mind. Crazy, desperate, with almost no chance of success. Exactly the kind of plan that had earned him a reputation in the Defense Corps for achieving impossible victories. Kale, he said, those modified healing crystals your people are carrying. How much destructive power are we talking about? The Etherian warrior looked uncomfortable. They were never meant as weapons, Captain, but used improperly, a single resonator crystal could destabilize the molecular bonds in several tons of matter. What if we had 50 of them, all resonating at the same frequency? Matron Asara gasped. You speak of the forbidden harmonics. Such knowledge was sealed away after the Crystal Wars, millennia ago. Sometimes desperate times require forbidden knowledge, Marcus said. Could it be done? Theoretically, Isara admitted reluctantly. But the energy release would be, she trailed off, calculating, equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. And the resonance cascade would require someone to remain behind to maintain the harmonic frequency. They would not survive. Marcus felt Lyralii's alarm through their bond, her understanding of what he was contemplating. Marcus, no. There has to be another way. Princess, he said gently, sometimes the needs of many outweigh the needs of few. How many innocent people are in this camp? 273. She answered automatically, then her eyes widened. But you cannot sacrifice yourself for us. Our lives are joined now. If you die, I die. The approaching Zephyrian forces were close enough now that Marcus could make out individual vehicles through his rifle scope. Heavily armored assault craft, hover tanks, and above them the angular silhouettes of gunships preparing to strafe the camp. Not necessarily, Matron Asara said quietly. The soul bond can be severed, though the process is traumatic for the survivor. No, Lyralii said firmly. I will not allow it. Marcus turned to face her, taking her hands in his. Through their connection, he projected all the calm certainty he could muster. Princess, in the short time I've known you, you've shown me what it means to have something worth dying for. These people, your knowledge, the hope you represent, that's bigger than either of us. And you have shown me what it means to have someone worth living for, she replied, tears streaming down her face. Do not ask me to choose between my people and my heart. Chen's voice cut through their conversation. Movement on the perimeter. Zephyrian advanced scouts are in position. We have maybe 5 minutes before the main assault begins. Marcus made his decision. Kale, start gathering every resonator crystal in the camp. Matron Asara, I need you to calculate the exact harmonic frequency we'll need. Chun, get everyone to the ships and prepare for immediate departure. And me? Lyralii asked. You're going with them. Your people need their princess. No. Her voice carried absolute authority. If you remain, I remain. We face this together or not at all. Through their bond, Marcus could feel her determination. It was as unyielding as his own, reinforced by centuries of Etherian cultural values about duty and honor. She would not be moved. Then, we find a third option, he said. Something that doesn't require either of us to die. The sound of plasma cannons charging echoed across the desert as the Zephyrian assault force prepared to attack. Above them, gunships were positioning for strafing runs. In minutes, this peaceful refugee camp would become a killing field. That's when Marcus heard it, a sound that made his heart leap with recognition. The distinctive harmonic resonance of human military-grade engines operating at full combat power, coming from directly overhead. A ship decloaked 50 meters above the camp, its hull scarred from countless battles, weapons pods extended and charging. The vessel was clearly human in design, but modified far beyond standard specifications. Armor plating had been added in layers, giving it an almost organic appearance, and its energy signature was unlike anything Marcus had seen. A voice boomed across the camp's communication system, speaking in accented English with the absolute confidence of someone accustomed to commanding in desperate situations. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the free ship Indomitable. All refugees prepare for immediate evacuation. Any Zephyrian forces in this area have 30 seconds to withdraw before I demonstrate why they call me the Phantom of the Void." Marcus grinned. He knew that voice, that absolute refusal to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. Elena Vasquez had been his commanding officer during the Proxima campaign, the woman who had taught him that humans didn't win through superior technology or numbers, but through sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit. The Zephyrian response was immediate and predictable. Every weapon in their assault force opened fire on the Indomitable simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic projectiles converged on the human ship in a display of firepower that should have vaporized anything smaller than a battlecruiser. The attack struck the Indomitable's shields and simply stopped. The energy weapons were absorbed, their power flowing into the ship's systems. The kinetic projectiles were deflected by what appeared to be gravitational manipulation fields. The plasma bolts were redirected back at their sources with surgical precision. Impossible cette bretade. No human ship has defensive capabilities like that. Marcus was staring at the vessel with growing understanding. The modifications, the energy absorption, the gravitational fields, this wasn't purely human technology. "Elena," he called into his communicator, "what did you do to your ship?" Vasquez's laughter echoed across the battlefield. "Steele, is it you down there? I should have known you'd be in the middle of this mess." Her tone turned serious. "To answer your question, I made some new friends. Turns out when you save a few alien scientists from Zephyrian prison camps, they're very grateful. Grateful enough to share technology that officially doesn't exist." The Indomitable's weapon systems came online with a sound like thunder. But instead of standard human plasma cannons or missile launchers, the ship's armaments included what appeared to be crystalline focusing arrays and devices that bent space itself. "All refugees board immediately," Vasquez commanded. "Transport shuttles are launching from my cargo bays. Everyone else, find cover. I'm about to show these bugs why Earth doesn't surrender." The first shuttle landed in the camp's central area, its bay doors already open. Refugees began moving toward it with the desperate efficiency of people who had learned to evacuate quickly or die. But the Zephyrians were adapting to their changed circumstances. The ground assault forces spread out to make themselves harder targets, while the gunships above began coordinated attacks designed to overwhelm even the Indomitable's impressive defenses. "They're trying to pin us down," Chin observed, her tactical display showing Zephyrian positions. By time for reinforcements to arrive. Marcus felt Lyraliai's presence in his mind, her alien senses picking up something his human ones had missed. "More ships," she said quietly, "coming from orbit. Many more." Marcus looked up and saw the first hints of them, streaks of light as additional Zephyrian vessels entered the atmosphere. The assault force on the ground had been just the advance guard. They were facing the full might of a Zephyrian battle fleet. "Elena," Marcus called into his communicator, "please tell me you brought friends." "Sorry, Steele. It's just me and the Indomitable against whatever they want to throw at us." Vasquez paused. "But before you get too depressed, you should know that the modifications to my ship include some very interesting offensive capabilities. Watch and learn." The Indomitable rotated to face the descending enemy fleet, its unusual weapons arrays coming to bear. What happened next defied Marcus's understanding of physics. Space around the enemy ships began to fold, crushing several vessels like tin cans in invisible fists. Others found themselves caught in localized time distortions, their movements slowing to a crawl while the Indomitable's attacks reached them at normal speed. Still others simply vanished, displaced to coordinates somewhere else in the galaxy. Temporal manipulation and spatial folding, Matron Isara whispered in awe. Technologies that existed in theory, but were thought impossible to implement. Nothing's impossible if you're stubborn enough, Vasquez replied, her ship's sensors apparently picking up conversations on the ground. Though I have to admit, having alien physicists who think outside human limitations helps considerably. The refugee evacuation was proceeding rapidly, but Marcus could see they weren't going to make it. Too many ships in the enemy fleet, too many people still on the ground. Even the Indomitable's impressive capabilities had limits, and the Zephyrians were learning to adapt their tactics. That's when Lyralii made a decision that changed everything. Matron Isura, she said, her voice carrying royal authority, begin the resonance awakening. The elderly Etherian's eyes went wide. Princess, that ritual has not been performed in over 2,000 years. And it requires the willing participation of someone with royal blood and a soul bond to anchor the process, Lyralii finished. I meet both requirements. Marcus felt alarm spike through their connection as he realized what she was contemplating. What is the resonance awakening? A last resort of my people, Lyralii explained, her hands already moving to remove crystal devices from her robes. It links every Etherian in the area into a single consciousness, combining our knowledge and abilities. But the strain on the anchor point is... She met his eyes, usually fatal. No, Marcus said firmly. We just agreed that neither of us dies today. And we will not, she said with serene confidence, because you will be sharing the burden through our soul bond. 2 anchors instead of 1, human stubbornness combined with Etherian wisdom. Around them, the surviving Etherian refugees were responding to their princess's call. They formed a circle, each holding a resonator crystal, the devices beginning to pulse in unison. Marcus could feel the power building, a harmonic frequency that seemed to resonate in his bones. What exactly will this do? He asked as the ritual began. Combine the knowledge and abilities of every Etherian here, Lyralii said, her silver eyes beginning to glow with inner light. Including their collective memory of technologies thought lost, healing techniques that can affect entire armies, and the wisdom of ages. Marcus felt the ritual's power washing over him through their bond. Suddenly, his mind was connected not just to Lyralii, but to every Etherian in the circle. Centuries of accumulated knowledge flooded through him. Scientific principles, medical techniques, and something more profound. The collective wisdom of a civilization dedicated to preserving and protecting life. Through the expanded awareness, Marcus could sense the battle raging above. The Indomitable was holding its own, but barely. Zephyrian reinforcements were still arriving, and Vasquez's ship, impressive as it was, couldn't protect the evacuation indefinitely. But now, with the combined knowledge of the Etherian survivors flowing through him, Marcus could see possibilities that hadn't existed moments before. Chun, he called out, his voice carrying new certainty. Get everyone behind the shields. All of them. Humans, aliens, everyone. What are you planning? Chun asked, but she began moving people into the protective barrier the Etherians had erected around their circle. Marcus didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached out through his expanded awareness and touched the mind of Captain Vasquez aboard the Indomitable. What happened next would be remembered in the legends of a dozen species. The human captain, her ship modified with impossible alien technology, suddenly found her consciousness expanded beyond anything she had ever imagined. Through Marcus's connection to the Etherian collective, she gained access to knowledge that had taken millennia to accumulate. And she put it to immediate use. The Indomitable's weapons systems, already formidable, began operating with efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. Each shot found its target with impossible precision. The ship's defensive systems adapted in real time to enemy tactics, countering strategies the moment they were implemented. But, more than that, Vasquez began using the ship's reality manipulation systems with the wisdom of beings who had studied the fundamental forces of the universe for thousands of years. Space itself became a weapon. Zephyrian ships found themselves trapped in recursive time loops, attacking phantom images of the indomitable, while the real ships struck them from impossible angles. Others discovered that their weapons had been redirected through folded space to target their own allies. The tide of battle turned in minutes. The Zephyrian fleet, moments before poised to annihilate the refugee camp, found itself scattered across local space, their coordination shattered by attacks that defied their understanding of physics. Impossible, one of the surviving Zephyrian commanders transmitted on an open frequency. No species possesses such capabilities. Vasquez's voice answered, carrying the harmonics of the Etherian collective. You're right. No single species does. But when civilizations unite instead of conquering each other, they create possibilities beyond any empire's imagination. The surviving Zephyrian forces withdrew, their retreat covered by long-range interdiction fields that prevented pursuit. They had learned a hard lesson. Humanity might be technologically inferior, but when humans form alliances, they became something far more dangerous than the sum of their parts. As the immediate danger passed, Marcus felt the resonance awakening beginning to fade. The connection to the collective consciousness slowly withdrew, leaving him once again alone in his own mind, except for Lyraliai's comforting presence through their soul bond. But the knowledge remained. Not the specific technical details, which required years of study to truly understand, but the broader principles. The understanding that cooperation created possibilities that conquest never could. Princess, Matron Asura said, approaching Lyraliai with obvious relief, the ritual is complete, and you survived it. The ancient text spoke truly. A soul bond can indeed share burdens that would destroy a single individual. Lyraliai smiled, though Marcus could feel her exhaustion through their connection. The text also spoke of something else. They said that when a royal house forms a soul bond with a warrior from another species, it marks the beginning of a new age. She turned to Marcus, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. I believe that age begins now. Around them, the refugee camp was transforming. The hastily erected shelters were being replaced by more permanent structures as it became clear they would be staying for a while. The Indomitable had landed nearby, its cargo bays disgorging supplies and equipment that would help the survivors build a new life. But more than that, other ships were arriving. Human vessels, responding to reports of the impossible victory. Alien craft from a dozen species, their crews curious about the alliance that had defeated a Zephyrian battle fleet against impossible odds. Marcus realized he was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history, a true alliance between species, bound not by conquest or subjugation, but by mutual respect and shared goals. What happens now? He asked Lyraliai. She took his hand, their soul bond humming with shared determination. Now we show the galaxy that there is an alternative to the Zephyrian way. We build something new, together. Above them, the first joint human-alien fleet in galactic history began forming up, their diverse technologies already being adapted and improved through shared knowledge. The Free Volunteer fleet had found a new purpose, and the scattered survivors of the Zephyrian conquest had found hope. Marcus Steele, retired wheat farmer turned galactic game-changer, looked at the growing fleet and smiled. He had come to this desert world to save one alien princess. Instead, he might have helped save the galaxy itself. The real work was just beginning 3 months after the Battle of Zirian Prime. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship Harmony, watching the construction of humanity's first joint species shipyard. The massive orbital platform was a testament to what could be accomplished when different civilizations combined their knowledge instead of waging war against each other. Etherian bioengineering techniques were being used to grow living hull sections that could self-repair battle damage. Human industrial capability provided the raw materials and manufacturing infrastructure. Draconian expertise in weapons systems created defensive arrays that could adapt to any threat. A dozen other species contributed their own specialties, from Zalari gravity manipulation to Kothari computational systems. The result was ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vessels that were part grown, part manufactured, wholly alive yet completely technological. Each one was unique, adapted to its crew's specific needs and capabilities. The Zephyrians are calling them abominations, Lyralii said, joining Marcus at the observation window. Her presence through their soul bond had given him advance warning of her approach, as it always did now. Their propaganda broadcasts speak of unnatural hybrid technologies and violations of the natural order. Marcus smiled grimly. Coming from a species that conquers other worlds by the dozen, that's pretty rich. He gestured toward the shipyard. How are our new friends adapting to working together? Better than expected, though there have been some cultural misunderstandings. Lyralii's expression suggested she had dealt with several of those personally. The hegemony delegate insisted that his people's contributions were being undervalued, until Captain Vasquez demonstrated exactly how effective hegemony energy shields become when powered by human fusion reactors and guided by Etherian harmonic resonance. Through the viewport, Marcus could see one of those hybrid vessels now, a sleek destroyer that seemed to shift and flow as its living components adapted to changing conditions. Its weapons were charging for a test firing, energy patterns visible as complex geometric forms that human eyes weren't quite designed to process. The test shot lanced out across empty space and struck a derelict asteroid. What happened next illustrated perfectly why the Zephyrians were concerned. The asteroid didn't simply explode. It underwent what appeared to be controlled molecular disassembly, its component materials sorting themselves into neat categories that could be collected for recycling. Impressive, Marcus said. How long before we have a full fleet? 6 months for the first squadron, assuming no interference. Lyralii's tone suggested she expected interference. But the Zephyrians won't simply watch us build a force capable of challenging their dominance. Intelligence reports indicate they're massing forces for a preemptive strike. Marcus had been expecting this. The Zephyrian Empire had built their power on the principle that no other species could match their technological superiority. The emergence of the Alliance, with its hybrid technologies and unprecedented cooperation, challenged that fundamental assumption. What kind of force are we talking about? 3 full battle fleets, plus support vessels. Nearly 1,000 ships in total. Lyralii's silver eyes met his. They're calling it Operation Final Solution. The complete elimination of both humanity and any species that has allied with us. Marcus felt the familiar weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. When he'd shared his blood with a dying alien princess on a desert world, he'd thought he was saving one life. Instead, he'd become a symbol of something that threatened to reshape galactic civilization. Through their soul bond, he could sense Lyralii's similar burden. As the last surviving member of the Etherian royal house, she had become the de facto leader of the Alliance's diplomatic efforts. Every day brought new species seeking membership, new technologies to integrate, new cultures to understand and accommodate. Any word from Earth? Marcus asked. Lyralii's expression darkened. The Terran government is cautious. They acknowledge the Alliance's effectiveness, but worry about humanity being absorbed into something larger. There are factions within the government that believe humans should maintain their independence rather than risk their identity in an interstellar coalition. Marcus understood the concern, even if he disagreed with it. Humans had always been fiercely independent, suspicious of foreign entanglements. The idea of binding their fate to alien species, no matter how beneficial the partnership, triggered deep-seated fears about cultural extinction. And the other species? Similar concerns, expressed in different ways. Lyralii moved closer to the viewport, her reflection ghost-like in the transparent aluminum. The Draconians worry about losing their warrior traditions. The Zalari fear their technological secrets will be misused. The Kothari are concerned about the spiritual implications of joining minds across species barriers. Marcus watched a squad of Alliance fighters performing training maneuvers near the shipyard. Each fighter was crewed by a mixed-species team, their different abilities complementing each other in ways that made the vessels far more effective than any single species design. But they're all here, he observed, despite the fears. Because they've seen what happens when the Zephyrians come, Lyralii said simply. Extinction is a powerful motivator for cooperation. A communication alert sounded through the observation deck, followed by Captain Vasquez's voice over the ship's intercom. All senior staff to the command center. We have incoming priority communications from the border sectors. Marcus and Lyralii made their way through the Harmony's corridors, passing crew members from a dozen different species working together with an efficiency that would have been impossible just months earlier. The soul bond between Marcus and Lyralii had become a template for communication between species. Not the mystical joining they shared, but practical methods of linking different types of minds for enhanced cooperation. The command center was buzzing with activity when they arrived. Holographic displays showed star maps with red zones indicating Zephyrian fleet movements, while communication stations handled reports from across Alliance space. "What's the situation?" Marcus asked as they joined the senior staff around the central planning table. Commander Chen looked up from her tactical display. "Multiple reports of Zephyrian scout fleets probing our outer defenses. They're not engaging, just gathering intelligence on our capabilities. Standard pre-invasion tactics," Colonel Seth observed, his reptilian features grim. "They will identify weak points, test response times, and catalog our defensive assets." Captain Vasquez manipulated the holographic display, showing the pattern of Zephyrian movements. "It's more sophisticated than that. Look at the probe patterns. They're not just mapping our defenses, they're studying how different species work together. They're looking for cultural and technological incompatibilities they can exploit." Marcus studied the display, his enhanced intuition, a gift from his soul bond with Lyralii, picking up patterns that his conscious mind hadn't yet processed. "They're not planning a conventional assault." "What do you mean?" Chen asked. "Look at the timing and locations of these probes. They're coordinated to coincide with known stress points in our alliance structure." Marcus pointed to specific movements on the display. "Here, where the hegemony and Kothari territories meet. They've had border disputes for centuries. And here in the sector where human and draconian patrols overlap. There was an incident last week involving conflicting command protocols." Lyralii's eyes widened as she understood. "They're planning to turn us against each other. Create incidents that will fracture the alliance before they launch their main attack. Divide and conquer," Vasquez said grimly. "Classic Zephyrian strategy. They've used it to destroy dozens of coalition forces over the centuries." The implications were sobering. The alliance's strength came from cooperation between diverse species, each contributing unique capabilities. But that same diversity created potential fault lines that a sophisticated enemy could exploit. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "Based on historical patterns, 6 to 8 weeks, Seth replied. "Time enough to sow discord and gather detailed intelligence, but not so long that we can significantly strengthen our defenses." Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. Through his bond with Lyralii, he could sense her parallel thoughts, the same understanding that they stood at a crucial juncture. The choices made in the next few weeks would determine whether the alliance survived or fractured into squabbling fragments that the Zephyrians could destroy piecemeal. "We need to accelerate everything," he said. "Ship construction, crew training, diplomatic integration, all of it." "That's impossible," Chen protested. "We're already pushing production schedules beyond safe limits. The hybrid technologies are complex. Rushing them could result in catastrophic failures." And if we don't rush them, we won't have a chance to fail catastrophically because we'll all be dead, Marcus countered. The Zephyrians aren't going to wait for us to be ready. A new alarm sounded, and one of the communication officers called out, "Priority signal from the outer rim. The colony at Theta Centauri is under attack." The main display shifted to show a remote star system on the edge of Alliance space. Theta Centauri was a human agricultural colony, established only recently as part of the expansion program. Its population was barely 50,000, mostly farmers and support personnel. "Details," Vasquez ordered. "Limited information. The attack began 20 minutes ago. Initial reports indicate a small Zephyrian force, maybe a dozen ships. The colonists have activated their emergency beacon and are requesting immediate assistance." Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind processing the implications. "It's a trap." "Obviously," Seth agreed. "But that doesn't mean we can ignore it. 50,000 civilians are in danger. And if we respond in force, we weaken our defenses here," Chen added. "Classic tactical dilemma. Save the few or protect the many." Through his soul bond, Marcus felt Lyraliai's emotional response to the situation. The Etherian commitment to preserving life made the idea of abandoning the colonists almost physically painful to her. But her rational mind understood the strategic implications as clearly as his did. "There might be a third option," she said slowly. "What if we respond, but not in the way they expect?" "Explain." Lyraliai moved to the tactical display, manipulating it to show potential fleet movements. "The Zephyrians expect us to send either a small force that they can destroy or a large force that weakens our main defenses. But what if we send something they've never encountered before?" Marcus began to understand. A ship they can't predict or counter because it's built on principles they don't understand. Exactly. Lyraliai's silver eyes were bright with possibility. "The prototype vessel in construction Bay 7. It's not complete, but it's functional enough for a combat test." Vasquez looked uncertain. "That ship has never been fully tested. We don't even know if all its systems are compatible. Which is exactly why the Zephyrians won't know how to counter it," Marcus said, the plan taking shape in his mind. "They've built their entire tactical doctrine around predictable technologies. A ship that operates on hybrid principles, with systems that adapt in real time. They won't have effective countermeasures." The prototype in question was the Alliance's most ambitious project, a vessel that wasn't just built with contributions from multiple species, but was designed to be operated by a truly integrated crew. Instead of separate departments for different functions, the ship used a neural network that linked crew members' minds directly to the ship's systems and to each other. It was also completely untested in combat conditions. Who would command it? Chen asked. Marcus and Lyraliai exchanged glances, their soul bond carrying volumes of unspoken communication. They both knew the answer, and both understood the risks involved. "We would," Marcus said. "My tactical experience, combined with Lyraliai's knowledge of the hybrid technologies, linked through our soul bond to coordinate the crew's integration." "Absolutely not," Vasquez said immediately. "You're both too valuable to risk on an untested prototype. If something goes wrong with the prototype now, we have time to fix it," Lyraliai interrupted. "If we wait for the main Zephyrian assault and our hybrid technologies fail, then the entire alliance falls." The command center fell silent as the senior staff considered the proposal. Through the viewport, they could see the incomplete prototype docked at the shipyard, a sleek vessel that seemed to flow and change shape even while motionless, its living components adapting to environmental conditions. "How long would you need to prepare?" Vasquez asked finally. 12 hours to complete the most critical systems, 6 hours to brief the crew and run integration tests," Marcus replied. "We could be en route within a day." "And a crew?" "Volunteers only," Lyraliai said. "People from different species who are willing to risk their lives testing technology that might save the Alliance." Marcus felt a familiar sensation through their bond, Lyraliai's absolute certainty that this was the right course of action, combined with her fear of the consequences if they failed. It matched his own emotional state perfectly. "There's one more consideration," he said. "If we succeed, we'll have proven that the Alliance's hybrid technologies can work under combat conditions. That alone could be worth the risk. And if we fail?" Chen asked. Marcus looked around the command center at the representatives of a dozen different species, all working together despite centuries of suspicion and conflict. "If we fail, at least we'll have tried something new instead of dying the same old way." Vasquez was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Permission granted. You have 18 hours to prepare, then you launch for Theta Centauri." She paused. "And Marcus? Bring back those colonists. All of them." Marcus felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders again, but this time it was accompanied by something new: hope. Through his bond with Lyraliai, he could sense her parallel emotions: fear and determination in equal measure, but underlying it all, the conviction that they were building something worth dying for. "Understood, Captain. We won't let you down." As the senior staff dispersed to begin preparations, Marcus remained at the tactical display, studying the route to Theta Centauri. It would take the prototype ship 2 days to reach the colony at maximum speed, assuming the hybrid propulsion systems function as designed. Lyraliai joined him, her presence a comfort through their soul bond. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "Third and fourth thoughts," Marcus admitted. "But the first thought remains the same. This is what we have to do." She nodded, understanding passing between them without need for words. They had bonded their lives together to save one dying princess on a desert world. Now, they were risking those joined lives to prove that cooperation could triumph over conquest. "The crew volunteers are already assembling," Lyraliai said. 12 beings from 8 different species, all willing to stake their lives on untested technology and unproven theories. "Sound about right for the Alliance," Marcus said with a slight smile. "We never do things the easy way." Through the viewport, he could see work crews swarming over the prototype ship, completing the final system integrations that would allow it to function as designed. Or as designed as anything could be when it incorporated technologies from multiple species that had never worked together before. In 18 hours, they would find out if the Alliance's vision of cooperative evolution could survive contact with the enemy. Marcus hoped they would live long enough to find out. But first, they had a colony to save and a trap to spring on an enemy that thought it understood all the possibilities the galaxy had to offer. The Zephyrians were about to learn how wrong they were. The prototype ship Unity dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Theta Centauri system like a creature awakening from deep slumber. Its biomechanical hull rippled with sensor arrays that extended and retracted like breathing, while crystalline weapon pods rotated to scan for threats with an almost predatory awareness. Marcus stood on the bridge, though stood wasn't quite accurate. The ship's neural interface system had integrated his consciousness partially with the vessel's living components, allowing him to experience space around them as an extension of his own senses. It was disorienting and exhilarating at the same time. Through his soul bond with Lyraliai, who was similarly integrated with the ship's systems, he could feel the unity responding to their combined will. The vessel wasn't just a machine they operated. It was becoming an extension of their joined consciousness. "Sensor sweep complete," reported Lieutenant Zara Okafor, the ship's human tactical officer. Her voice carried the slight distortion common to all crew members connected to the neural network. 12 Zephyrian vessels in planetary orbit, as reported. But something's wrong with their positioning. Marcus examined the tactical display, which now appeared not on a screen, but directly in his mind through the ship's interface. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in standard assault formation around Theta Centauri's main colony world, but their positioning was almost too perfect. "It's definitely a trap," confirmed Ensign Crix, a Draconian navigation specialist whose 4 arms allowed him to interface with multiple ship systems simultaneously. "But the trap appears designed for conventional Alliance vessels, not for whatever we are." Through the ship's extended senses, Marcus could detect the energy signatures of hidden Zephyrian ships stationed beyond the system's outer planets. Nearly 40 vessels total, all waiting to spring their ambush when Alliance reinforcements arrived. Status of the colony? Lyralii asked, her consciousness flowing through the ship's communication arrays to monitor civilian frequencies. Alive, but under siege, replied Dr. Veltar, an Etherian medical officer whose integration with the ship's life support systems allowed her to monitor biological signatures across vast distances. I'm detecting approximately 47,000 human life signs in the main colony complex, plus scattered groups in outlying settlements. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and concern through his bond with Lyralii. The colonists were alive, but for how long? The Zephyrians were notoriously impatient when their traps failed to spring quickly enough. Options? He asked the integrated crew. The response came not as individual voices, but as a collective analysis flowing through the neural network. The ship's crew had become something unprecedented, not just different species working together, but minds partially merged in pursuit of a common goal. Direct assault unlikely to succeed. 40-plus enemy vessels versus one prototype ship represents overwhelming numerical disadvantage. However, conventional tactical analysis may not apply to Unity's capabilities. Astra's colony evacuation possible, but would require multiple trips and extended exposure to enemy fire. Colonists lack evacuation ships capable of interstellar flight. Asterisk alternative. Demonstrate Unity's capabilities in limited engagement to discourage further Zephyrian aggression while evacuating colonists. Asterisk Marcus considered the collective input, his tactical training processing the situation while the ship's living systems provided data that no conventional vessel could gather. Through his enhanced senses, he could detect the molecular composition of the Zephyrian ships, their energy patterns, even the biological signatures of their crews. New plan, he announced, his thoughts flowing through the network to reach all crew members simultaneously. We don't spring their trap, we spring our own. The Unity began moving toward the inner system, but not in the direct approach the Zephyrians expected. Instead, the ship followed a complex spiral trajectory that took it through the system's asteroid belt, its living hull adapting to micrometeor impacts while its sensors mapped every rock and debris field. What are you planning? Lyralii asked through their private bond, though she was already beginning to understand through their shared connection to the ship. The Zephyrians expect us to either charge in heroically and get destroyed or call for reinforcements and lead them into the ambush, Marcus replied. Instead, we're going to give them something they've never seen before. Through the ship's manufacturing systems, a hybrid of human industrial technology and Etherian bioengineering, the Unity began converting asteroid material into specialized projectiles. Not conventional weapons, but something far more sophisticated. Each projectile was a miniature ecosystem, part guided missile, part biological organism, capable of independent thought and adaptation. As the ship's manufacturing bays worked, dozens of these hybrid weapons took shape, their living components already bonding with crystalline targeting systems and quantum entangled communication networks. Biological warfare? Asked Commander Torres, a human weapons specialist whose integration with the ship's armaments gave him an intuitive understanding of their capabilities. Biological cooperation, Lyralii corrected, her consciousness flowing through the weapons systems to guide their development. Each projectile will carry a fragment of Alliance knowledge, proof that different species can work together more effectively than any single civilization. The first Zephyrian patrol detected the Unity when it was still 3 hours from the colony world. The enemy response was immediate and predictable. The visible ships moved to intercept while transmitting coded signals to the hidden ambush fleet. Incoming transmission, reported communications officer Sean, a Kothari whose natural telepathic abilities had been enhanced by the neural network. The Zephyrians are demanding our surrender. Standard response. Marcus ordered, though the Unity's answer would be anything but standard. The ship opened fire, but not with the plasma cannons or missile launchers the Zephyrians expected. Instead, the hybrid weapons launched in a seemingly random pattern, scattering through local space like seeds thrown by a cosmic gardener. The Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept the projectiles, their point defense systems easily tracking and targeting what appeared to be primitive kinetic weapons. But as their defensive fire struck the incoming projectiles, something unprecedented happened. Instead of exploding, the hybrid weapons began to replicate. Each successful hit caused the target to split into multiple smaller projectiles, each one carrying the same payload, but adapted to counter the specific defensive measures that had struck it. Within minutes, the space around Theta Centauri was filled with thousands of the hybrid weapons, far too many for conventional point defense to handle. But the Zephyrians quickly realized that the projectiles weren't trying to damage their ships. Instead, they were learning. Each weapon that made contact with a Zephyrian vessel downloaded terabytes of data about the ship's construction, crew, and capabilities. But more than that, they began interfacing with the enemy ship's computer systems, not to damage or destroy, but to communicate. "What are those things doing?" demanded the Zephyrian fleet commander on an open channel, his mechanical translator rendering the insectoid clicks and hisses into something approximating human language. Marcus smiled, though his expression was transmitted not through visible means, but through the quantum communication network linking all the hybrid weapons. "They're showing you what you've been missing." Across the Zephyrian fleet, ship systems began displaying images of Alliance worlds where different species lived and worked together in harmony. Manufacturing centers where human efficiency combined with alien innovation to create technologies beyond any single civilization's capabilities. Medical facilities where Etherian healing arts saved lives from dozens of different species. Agricultural worlds where multiple forms of life created ecosystems more productive than anything evolution had achieved alone. But most powerfully, the weapons transmitted the story of Marcus and Lyralii, two beings from different species who had chosen to bind their lives together rather than let either die alone. The psychological impact on the Zephyrian crews was immediate and devastating. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that different species were natural enemies, that cooperation was weakness, that only through conquest could any race achieve greatness. The Alliance's living proof to the contrary struck at the core of everything they believed. "Impossible," the Zephyrian commander broadcast. "No species willingly shares power with inferiors." "Define inferior," Lyralii's voice replied through the quantum network, her words reaching every Zephyrian ship simultaneously. "Are humans inferior because their technology is less advanced? Are Etherians inferior because we prefer healing to conquest? Are Draconians inferior because they value honor over efficiency?" Through the Unity S sensors, Marcus could detect increasing agitation among the Zephyrian crews. Some were arguing with their officers, questioning orders for the first time in their lives. Others were accessing the data streams the weapons had established, learning about species they had been taught to see only as targets for conquest. "The Alliance offers a choice," Marcus added, his consciousness spreading through the network to address the entire enemy fleet. "Join us willingly and benefit from what we build together, or continue your path of conquest until there's nothing left to conquer but each other." The Zephyrian response came in the form of coordinated fire from their main battle fleet. 40 ships opened fire simultaneously on the Unity, their combined firepower enough to vaporize a small moon. But the prototype ship was no longer where their targeting systems indicated. The Unity had used its hybrid technologies to fold space around itself, appearing to teleport across the battlefield while actually riding a wave in the fabric of reality itself. "Impressive," Marcus said, his consciousness flowing through the ship's weapons systems as they prepared to demonstrate another Alliance innovation. But predictable, the Unity S response was swift and devastating. Instead of trying to destroy the Zephyrian ships, it targeted their weapons systems with surgical precision. Energy beams that adapted their frequency in real time to penetrate any shield. projectiles that phased through armor by vibrating at specific molecular frequencies, gravitational distortions that twisted weapon emplacements into unusable scrap. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian fleet found itself effectively disarmed, their ships intact but unable to fight. "This is your demonstration?" the enemy commander demanded. "Disabling weapons instead of destroying ships? You prove only that your alliance is weak, unwilling to take decisive action." "On the contrary," Lyrelii replied, her voice carrying the authority of uncounted generations of Etherian royalty. "We're proving that we're strong enough to choose mercy over massacre." Through the quantum communication network, Marcus could sense the continuing debate among